Joining us for the first Clare History in Focus discussion of 2026 is the local historian and author Colm Liddy. Colm, a very good morning and a happy new year to you.
And to you indeed, Alan. Good morning.
Good morning to you. You look very refreshed and ready to go again.
That's right. Well, sure, today we're actually going to bring some good news in the history instead of the constant...
None of us could have predicted that. The constant misery is coming to an end for a while.
Yes, there's one brief chink of light here where, of course, in the 19th century, which has three truly massive events. There's the one we're going to deal with today in 1828. There's the famine and there's the land war. But this one kicks things off with actually us winning for a change after centuries of losing. A hat-trick of military defeats in the 1600s, the 1700s spent under the penal laws, but now finally in 1828 Daniel O'Connell is elected for County Clare, and it was the first time that we got our act together and did so in a completely new way, non-violent, harnessing what the British liked to call a democracy, harnessing that protest, and in a new thing that, whereas we now had a politician of note, he recognised that to organise on the ground in Ireland, the best way to do that was to have the Catholic Church on your side. That was a crucial insight, because ultimately it was they who organised voters, collections of money or whatever, and so that would be something that other politicians later on would realise was so important in Ireland.
Okay, so towards the end of last year, you discussed an earlier period of Daniel O'Connell's life and involvement with Clare and how he entered the political fray very late in the day to win. So talk to us about the scenario around 1828 and O'Connell, a busy man, of course, a barrister and so on as well, and talk to us about how this campaign began and how he, what kind of a team did he have around him? He had the people on his side, so I'd imagine he had a lot of people willing to help him out with the campaign.
He did. So very much how last minute it was like this. He decided to run on Tuesday and the election was on Monday.
He's like myself, a procrastinator. He's right at the last minute. Oh yeah, I'll do that.
Not only that, but actually he had a full caseload of work in Dublin until Saturday. So he couldn't even leave Dublin.
Who says men can't multitask?
Yes. So he's got all these cases to win, which he does because he's by far the best barrister in Ireland at that time. And then you would have to say that straight away down in Clare he has the team assembled, because it's been a decade in the making, really. The top men are Tom Steele, who is a kind of eccentric Protestant landlord. His house, the shell of it, still stands on Killan Lake between Tulla and Kilkishen. It's a fine building. The O'Gorman Mahan, a swashbuckling fellow who fancied himself a soldier, and his house also still stands. It's New Park House, just off the Tulla Road in Ennis. And then Father John Murphy. He was this kind of tall, gaunt priest who just had apparently a voice like subterranean thunder, and
he sounds like a wonderful individual.
And he was the sort of fellow who people loved him, but they also were intimidated by him. But an old world figure. So you've got those guys, and on the other side you have the landlords who are shocked at this development, because up to now it has been accepted that all tenants who have a vote, the kind of top tenants, will do what their landlord tells them. This is just an expected fact. It's part of the unwritten agreement that they will do as they're told at elections. And now this is being threatened. To organise the landlords, we have Edward O'Brien, the reigning man in Dromoland at that time, and he got all of the landlords together. And the kind of, if you like, the candidate for the normal status quo was William V.C. Fitzgerald, a man from the Quinn area. He was part of the old school politics of where politics is entirely about doing favours for people and then they pay you back at the election. Anyway, the landlords, they got together and they pledged to give him $4,500 for election expenses. And this affected V.C. Fitzgerald so much that he began to cry with gratitude, something he did quite a bit.
That's a significant sum of money, I would imagine.
It is indeed. So the canvass began, and in a very hectic few days, O'Connell's men were crisscrossing the whole county, addressing meetings, because he himself was still up in Dublin, on doing the day job. There was a meeting, for instance, in Ogonnelloe, which took place at 1:30 a.m. and still huge crowds came out. Also, one of O'Connell's fellows in Dublin decided to finance him, and they printed several thousand green handkerchiefs. Never been done before. Green handkerchiefs, and they had on them embroidered Daniel O'Connell's face and the motto, Éireann go bragh, Ireland forever. And so those were given out at all of these canvassing things. Meanwhile, V.C. Fitzgerald and his landlords also canvassed. But, for instance, on one day, both camps decided to canvass in Corofin. And everybody went to the O'Connell canvass while the landlord stood on an empty platform.
Oh God. I mean, as you mentioned with the hankies, that's such a new thing to do and such a big undertaking so late in the campaign, because, as you say, O'Connell stepped into the race with days to spare.
Yeah.
To pull, but it's such a great move as well, to name recognition, and people knew about him, but it's such a difficult thing to pull off, but such a great thing to pull off.
Indeed. So finally, O'Connell, his arrival, he left Dublin only on the Saturday afternoon, and he not only did he obviously go across the country in coach and horses, but there was horses all the way along to replace the horses, and it was full belt, galloping all the way. And they made it to Limerick, and then they began to march into Clare. And by the time he got to Dromoland, the people from Ennis had come out. They took the horses off of his carriage and dragged it. This was the way they felt about it. Huge procession. And they brought him in, and it was only dawn, and he needed to be at the courthouse at 11 a.m. for the announcement of the election really beginning. And so, he had a quick breakfast and got to the thing. Many of the people there were wearing green sashes. There was speeches. Again, V.C. Fitzgerald was moved to tears when he gave his speech, as he explained to them how disappointed his dying father would be to see the people of Clare thinking of not electing him. Because his father too had been one of these old school politicians who did favours for people. And now the people of Clare had the temerity to vote for or think of voting for somebody on other grounds, like, actually a better life for everyone, or anything crazy like that.
I hope V.C. Fitzgerald had a few of those hankies. He sounds like his waterworks where he was constantly crying.
He was, a sensitive fellow, so it's a pity that he gets to be the bad guy in this story.
So tell us, Colm, the day arrives then, polling begins. I mean, even despite his late entry, given, as you say, the turnouts at some of the rallies and so on, numbers usually with O'Connell, less so with his opponents, the suspicion must have been that O'Connell was going to romp to victory.
It was, but we'll say at the end of the day, the electorate in Clare, I mean, what I often say is, how in the name of God is it even considered that Britain has had a democracy for centuries? Because the democracy of the time is this. Clare has a population at this moment of, let's say, 250,000 people, 250,000 people. The electorate is 3,000 people.
3,000 out of 250,000.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the democracy we're talking about, So you
wouldn't have provided much drama for us here at Clare FM with around back then. The counting would be over in no time at all.
Well, you would think so, but on the other hand, actually, the polling took 3 days. The counting, yes, is quick, but because there's no technology and people essentially many of them have to walk or come up by horseback, the way they do it is they run it over several days. And the landlords obviously are the first to vote. A huge number of them arrive in their carriages, and a major show of force. So obviously they all vote for V.C. Fitzgerald. But John Murphy takes the whole population, the tenant population, because basically tenants of a reasonable size, if they had £2 worth of land, which is a substantial holding, then they are allowed to vote. Previously, they've always done what the landlords tell them. This time, John Murphy marches them all the way in from Corofin, and they're carrying green branches. And the significance of that is it's illegal to carry a green flag. That's not allowed. But a green branch, well, they can't stop you doing that. So that's basically how you symbolise your connection to old Ireland. But on top of that, even though a tiny few of them can actually vote, hundreds of just ordinary Clare people pour into the town. Ennis is like a carnival. There's 50,000 people all whooping, shouting, singing, dancing. The one thing they're significantly not doing, though, is drinking. because the Catholic Association are afraid that if they start drinking, which Irish people have been known to do, that there will be a riot at some stage, that the military will start cracking heads, and indeed possibly the election will be called off, which would be very convenient. So they are sworn not to drink, and instead the Catholic Association also have the thing that they give out food vouchers to all and sundry, so that at least they can eat for the whole duration. And right at the poll where it's actually taking place, Father John Murphy takes up a position, and he's just staring at the voters as they come up one by one. And so much so that the county sheriff says, no, move along. And Murphy apparently said, may I now not just look? And the sergeant said, not with that face, you can't. So the results began to come in after 2 days of it, and it was pretty obvious from the tallies that O'Connell was going to win. So again, O'Connell and his election team began to relax. They went to Carmody's Tavern. One of the long-standing places in Ennis was this Carmody's. It was located down more or less opposite the Queen's, where there's now the entrance towards the car park. It's since collapsed. I think it was in the 1950s only that building collapsed. But anyway, O'Connell and the boys go there, have a huge slap-up dinner, and it's coming to the end. They're starting to drink claret, whiskey and punch. And again, Father Murphy makes his appearance, and he says, the wolf is on the walk while the shepherds are in here. By which he meant the ordinary people outside are about to start drinking, come out and stop before they cause a riot. So they had little choice, even though they were about to enjoy themselves, but to go outside and make sure that the peasantry didn't get overexcited and ruin everything.
I must say, referencing back to our Venezuela chat earlier on in the show, I'm kind of surprised in an era, as you say, British democracy in inverted commas, in a population of 250,000 people, only 3,000 could vote, that there wasn't some sort of attempt to fiddle the ballot to make sure that the great liberator didn't win. But I suppose he won by such a margin it'd be impossible to convince people otherwise. He
actually got 68% of the vote, and then he was cheered around Ennis in triumph. But when we'll say the next step was, of course, that he would go to the House of Commons, but because he was a Catholic, he would be asked to swear. And people took swearing very seriously in those days, to essentially denigrate the Catholic religion, and that the Pope was, the Antichrist and whatnot. So he would not do that. And although they kind of realised, the British establishment, that it was untenable really not to let him in, they decided to change the rules, but they won't apply to you because the election was run under the old rules. So he had to do it all again a year later, run the election another time. But this time he was unopposed. Another little rule change, again, because of their bitterness, was that they recognised, of course, it was only the tenants that had voted for him. So they changed the rules there too. So now the tenants, whereas previously it was £2 worth of land, now it would be £10. So they raised the bar to only the very tippity top. So incredibly, our electorate fell down to from 3,000. I said that was small. It was 1,000 by the time they were finished with this new rule change.
250,000 people. It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
Well, you see, the little ruffians had shown they couldn't be trusted.
Yeah, they really had.
To do what their betters told them. So, it seemed fair enough. But, I mean, that said, in the long run, the British did realise the power of democratic protest, because nothing like that had ever happened. I mean, we talk about O'Connell and his significant Irish history, massive. But it's huge. He's also affected British history, because nobody in Britain outside of government had ever affected government in this way. There was no such thing as a bunch of English peasantry gathering in their masses and affecting change. That just did not happen. It was only the upper echelons who got to do that. But the Irish situation showed what was coming, and would sooner or later would come to Manchester too, where the underclasses would begin to flex their muscles, because they were looking across the water and realising what O'Connell had done.
And what was possible.
What we could. I mean, bizarrely, this was the moment when Belgium achieved independence. Previously, Belgium had kind of been tied up essentially with Holland, you know what I mean? They got their independence this time. And when they went to vote for a president of their newly appointed, a bunch of people nominated Daniel O'Connell.
I tell you, those in the Congo would have been happy if O'Connell became the leader of Belgium and not King Leopold.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, that is how famous he is, and everybody around the world. So in effect, the British did, after a few years of sulking, have to start, changing the rules and bringing in more of the ordinary people into the electorate. Eventually, even women.
That'll never happen. Getting a stern look from producer Evelina, so I better move swiftly on before I'm killed. Anything else to finish with on that column?
I suppose the other then huge significance of it was the business, that how he managed it was through the help of the Catholic Church. And that combination of non-violent politics with church backing would actually, in the long run, prove a major force in Irish history, because if you consider the next big, attempt at freedom was the Young Ireland Rebellion. They had no church support and they went nowhere. Next after that, the Fenians. Again, no church support, went nowhere. And then the next one was the Land War, run by Michael Davitt and Parnell. They did get the church support and produced by far, I suppose, the most successful Irish rebellion of all, really, because it actually achieved its goals fully, the Land War. So I say O'Connell was the first to have that insight that is the reality of Irish life, was how you get things done. It's by having a few priests help you along the way.
Brilliant stuff as ever. Just what a man Daniel O'Connell was. Colm, what a man you are. Fair play to you. Brilliantly told and highlighted for us, and good to talk about something positive in relation to Irish history. Any little hint as to where we head next time you're in with us?
Well, I mean, we'll get back to the misery now, don't
worry. Great.
We now we'll face into the 1830s as we begin to foreshadow the famine and look at social conditions in various ways in that era, where essentially our population began to explode to an insane level, and with ultimately bad consequences,
Look forward to hearing about those bad consequences. Truly. Colm, thank you very much. If people want to check out your online store, where can they find you?
It's on shopinireland.ie.
Brilliant stuff. The local historian author Colm Liddy, thank you as always. Look forward to having you in again in a couple of weeks' time.